So our first reading, this excerpt from Book 4 and a little bit of Book 9 of Plato's Republic, is meant to give us a sense of what Plato's theory of human nature was. But of course, this is a very long dialogue, and we're just reading a very small part of it. And that's fine. It wasn't not really feasible to read the whole thing, at least the way the course is structured. But we have to have some idea of what the context of the discussion is in the beginning. Well, not even in the beginning; it's from the middle of it. So it's the latter part of Book 4. I mean, what has led them to this point, where basically Plato, through Socrates, provides a certain theory of human nature. Well, the question they've been pursuing is, what is justice? There was some discussion in the very beginning of the book between Socrates and a character about, old age and, how old age can be difficult and what the advantages of wealth are. And that led to discussion of justice. Or an older man says, basically, if I know that I've been just in my life and that makes my life more peaceful as I approach death. And Socrates, being Socrates, is very interested in saying, well, then what is justice? And that's what they pursue. Although one may argue that the larger question in the Republic is whether I should be just or unjust if I want to live a happy and fulfilled life. And perhaps the dialogue as a whole is meant as Socrates or Plato's argument that the just life is superior to the unjust life in terms of being more choice-worthy, being the one you want to choose if you want to be happy. But of course, before he can try to establish that justice is better, he's got to argue, just what is justice. He's got to define justice. In the major thing that you have to be aware of in the context of the discussion once Book 4 gets started is that they have decided to find justice, Socrates proposes, by looking for it on a larger scale. Basically, what is the just city? And city for them basically meant self-governing political community. So you maybe think of any country or nation in place of city. What is the just city? What would it look like if we were to make an imaginary city that was perfectly just, or as just as we could make it? What would it look like? And Socrates, in this very clever way, kind of makes it a rule that if a city is to be a good city, a just city, an efficient city, a prosperous city, that everyone should stick to one job. And this leads to a city in which there's a definite class structure. And that's really what I want to emphasize here, is that the city is composed of classes. And those classes are hierarchical. That is, that there's an upper class, the gold class, whom he calls the guardians. There is a middle class, one may say, the silver class, basically the soldiers or auxiliaries, if I'm spelling that right. Probably I'm not. And then the bronze class, and that's basically everyone else, but he oftentimes calls them the money makers. And this is key because this three-part or tripartite or this arrangement of social classes where the most educated, the best, and put that in quotes, people are chosen very carefully to be the rulers. The guardians are the ones who have the absolute political power. The silver people, the auxiliaries, are their helpers or their instruments, carry out their orders. And the bronze people is everyone else. The people who do not partake in any kind of political power and have no political authority simply pursue their private lives, have jobs, make money, own property. I mean, it's not really very well spelled out because Socrates' main interest and focus is on the gold and silver people, the so-called guardians and their auxiliaries. So that's really, I think, what you need to have in place. They've gone through two books 2 and 3, where they've described the constitution of this perfect, ideal, or most just city in Socrates' opinion. And its most important feature is it has these 3 classes, and that they are hierarchical, right? The guardians are the rulers, and the auxiliaries carry out the orders of the guardian rulers. And the duty of you could say the only political obligation of the bronze people, which would be the vast majority of people, is to obey the political pronouncements of the rulers. And a lot of is about the proper selection of the guardian class, very detailed description of their education. But this structure is what you have to keep in mind. That is, this political or social structure of gold, silver, and bronze, which is definitely, again, hierarchical, right? That is that I'm going to put these V's in just so that this is the order of political authority. That the rulers are definitely on top. I mean, it's all very specific. You got to read it to sort of really get it. I mean, for one thing, the gold people have no gold, in the sense that the guardians are not allowed to own property. Neither are the auxiliaries. They have absolute political power, but as we find out throughout the book, they own no property. They have no families. They're totally devoted to the state and to the well-being of the city as a whole. But political authority is definitely from the top down. The presumption being that, again, that these gold people are the best people, the ones who pass the rigorous educational tests, the requirements of the rulers of the city. This is Plato's clever way, establishing this class structure, of providing a basis for his theory of human nature. And one may even argue that I would argue that the whole point of his political philosophy in the Republic is to provide a basis for his theory of human nature, which is the one that unfolds in Book 4. So I think that once you're aware of that, again, that they're looking for justice, and in Book 4 we get our definition of justice, is wrapped up in a theory of human nature. Is what it means to be just. Is definitely, in the context of a theory of human nature. And as we see this, the parts of the city, the gold, the silver, and the bronze, serve as a basis for talking about the parts of the self. I think once just keeping this in mind should serve you, and why they're actually talking about it, because they've been building in conversation the constitution of the city for quite a while. It gives you, I think, all you really need to know in Book 4 in terms of the theory of human nature.